Hi, we're back live from the LinkedIn Hub at Advertising Week, and with us is Kargman, founder and CEO of Kargo. So from our chat, I noticed I'm finding out more, and you guys are kind of a really special mobile company, right?
There's a lot of mobile companies, but we're a very special
I called you
one.
guys special.
We love to be special.
With special ads, new and innovative special ads that you guys are running for yourselves, and we'll get to talking about that after we talk about some of the main stuff you guys do. So I know that you are thinking about kind of breaking through the clutter. I mean, everybody's thinking about, what's the secret? What's the formula? What are the what's the way to kind of break through the clutter? And so I want to hear from you about, you guys are obviously doing that on mobile. You're working with the publishers, you're working with the brands to really find innovative ways to do that. So let's talk a little bit about that and what the idea behind what you personally are focused on is.
So we're really the only company focused on brand advertising as it relates to mobile. Those are aspects that other people are trying to do. They're trying to capture brand dollars, but we're 100% focused on it. And I think that gets us to work with the brands in a way that's unique. Because we're not doing performance stuff, because we're not trying to get app downloads, because we're only trying to tell brand stories on this most important screen in people's lives. We have the opportunity to change the creative, to look at new formats, to run on the very best publishers, and tell those brand stories in a way that are going to be personal to the consumer and actually be really effective.
I think also, I mean, everybody seems to be trying to break out of the banners, online banners every time you're reading something. But I know you're focusing very much on trying to find really creative ways of engaging people. So let's get into let's roll up our sleeves and get into how you're actually doing that. What kinds of things are you doing to make sure that it is engaging people in a way that they are, having a positive user experience, making sure that they're not feeling like, whoa, okay, this is too much for me, and so on.
So many companies out there try to push the same thing over and over again, a banner. Why? Because it's scalable. We believe that consumers basically need to see something new and fresh every time that they look at that device. And so we actually change and create new campaign creatives every quarter. New formats. So what are those formats? Site skins, really takeovers of the page, custom content channels. We can actually build channels that are advertiser sponsored. We focus on new formats like vertical video, where it looks like a Snapchat format, but it appears on great news sites like CNN and the New York Times. Really focusing on how do you create formats that are novel, that consumers haven't seen before, that speak to the consumer in ways that are new in that there are, so for example, we have a Tinder unit where they're swiping across very much like the same activity that they see in Tinder. We have formats that actually use the accelerometer on the device to actually get consumers to engage with it. So really thinking about the device as its own channel and its own medium, and building formats that utilize the novelties of that device to get them to engage.
Yeah, I mean, mobile is something that, while it's still, while we've had it for 20 years or whatever, it is still a very brand new thing when you think about the history of devices, but it isn't going anywhere. As a matter of fact, it's growing. And so I think the idea of reaching consumers just through that channel is an important one that you're talking about. And
telling brand stories there.
Yeah,
Nobody's doing that today. Nobody's saying, people in TV are not watching as much TV, so how do I reach those same consumers where they are watching or consuming content, which is on mobile? And how do I tell my brand stories on that device in a way that's actually going to get them to pay attention? That's like the hardest and largest problem to solve today.
That is the hardest part.
But for some reason, companies are not as focused on that problem. Companies are pretty much focused on, how do I just get somebody to download or sign up for a credit card on a mobile device? And so it's strange that more people aren't trying to solve this at scale. It gives us a really good head start and makes us sort of unique in the marketplace, special, as you put it earlier.
So, I mean, telling stories. I mean, I've been talking to so many people over the past few days. Some people say, okay, so that's, you have to have an emotional connection. You build a connection. You have to have authenticity. You have to really convey the brand's values and beliefs so that people can connect with that. What are your thoughts on that? What is the best way to tell those stories in a way that's not just, look, I'm trying to sell you something?
So, I mean, it obviously has two components. One is the actual creative. So if you don't start with great ideas in terms of what the messaging is, the right graphics, the right messaging, and you're pretty much dead in the water.
Right.
But let's say that you actually are able to think through great creative in terms of the idea behind it. So then the question is, what are the formats that you're using in the right places contextually to run that? We're doing something called the Perfect Impression Project that looks at 4 things. We look at the right context. In other words, if you're running a red carpet type of brand campaign for a beauty company, don't you want to be on the best red carpet places, on People, on Us Weekly, on Entertainment Tonight, on Extra, on In Touch? You want to be on the best places where those consumers are. The second is creative. So now that you're there, how do you take over the red carpet, let's say slideshows, that allow people to see that slideshow but actually have the brand messaging around that? So one idea that we had is for a brand like, let's say, Suave that had a campaign around blissfulness, can you put a blissful or not underneath every photo? And if the blissful votes get above 60%, then you can wrap that particular photo in specific branding. So that's the second, which is the creative. The third is data. So if I'm talking to a guy that's 60 years old and just happens to be on People because maybe their daughter is like fascinated with a story, maybe not the right place to put that Suave branding. So you can get the right data around that so that you're actually making sure that you're talking to the right audience. And then the fourth is, how do you do that at scale? How do you figure out a marketplace that will allow you to buy that across all the best places? So that's the Perfect Impression Project, and we've been basically going down this path with 4 brands as we explore how to tell those brand stories on mobile.
Well, you were talking about contextual places, and I think that's really important. And one of the things we were talking about is how do you get your brand on publishers' websites and so on that are really relevant to your audiences and stuff, and not just, for example, putting it out on Facebook where it's like, it's kind of a drop in the bucket.
Some kitty and some tipping cows and a few other things.
Okay, no,
I love kitties, but not great if you're like trying to sell Harley Davidsons.
No, true. So let's talk a little bit about how you're doing that, like how you're making sure that it's got that contextual element and not just the kind of in the midst of a whole bunch of other stuff.
So our vision is to work with the largest and most well-known media companies, only the largest and most well-known. So if it's not something that is a household name, if it's not a trusted editorial place, now it might not be necessarily that big. Like we have smaller publishers that are incredible, like Food 52, but if it's not like a trusted editorial place with curated content, we effectively won't work with them. And so the goal that we had is work with the best contextual places, the best content, from the Viacoms to the NBCs to the CBSs to the Timings to the Hearst to the Meredith. Work with the very best places, and then at the same time, figure out how to innovate the mobile ads and the mobile ad innovation so that when you bring those two things together, you have the best creative in the best places with some data to help you make sure that you're not wasting that impression. And then you have sort of the formula, the ingredients for something truly special.
That sounds really good. It sounds like you've got the different ingredients, and you're cooking up something quite good for us consumers.
We've been super lucky. We were named to so many things this year. We just made the Cranes 50 here in New York, which is super exciting for us.
Congratulations, very cool.
And we were just named to just a number of other pretty incredible things. So. We've been very lucky with great growth over this last year.
That's pretty awesome. And you guys, just really briefly, we'll talk about your ad campaign, which was very, very edgy, even for Adweek and Advertising Age magazines. But you decided to take a chance on something I don't even know if we could. A little inappropriate. No, I'm just kidding. But good for you for doing something really edgy. And I think ultimately, just in the past couple of days, I've been talking to people, and you have to lead the charge on innovation. So. Good for you that you're doing that.
We think that this industry has gotten a little boring. I mean, theoretically, back in the Mad Men days, and I love that show, things were a little unexpected. Don Draper was able to be truly creative and think outside the box. People were going on crazy bender trips out to, to the desert, the whole 9 yards. And I feel like we've just become, big media has become very little formulaic and not really willing to take risks and get outside sort of the comfort zone. So how do we as an industry get back to the roots, which is talking to consumers in authentic ways with some risk.
With something fresh.
And doing something fresh, and then people will take notice. And so we are talking to human beings, right? It's not about machines. And so getting back to that sort of that genesis of that creative experience and that creative way to engage with consumers. That's what we're missing, and I hope with our company that we can be at the forefront of trying to do that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and good luck with all that, and enjoy the rest of advertising.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.